Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Hondo Carpenter. I additionally am your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated. We are excited. Who doesn't get excited with NFL football? And to do that, we bring in a man I've been friends with for almost 2 decades. Not just a journalist, but a personal friend away from football. A guy that my kids call Uncle. I love him. He's been in my home. And I just learned some very sad news about his family. So I'm going to open up today's podcast with some kind words of comfort. His sister is a Jets fan.
That she is. Although, to be fair, being a Giants fan hasn't been that much better the last 12 years or so. Before
How
that, it
does
was.
that happen? You were raised in such a good family with good parents. How does one kid turn out a Jets fan, one a Giants? Were your parents split?
No. My brother and I are both Giants fans, and my sister just kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it was something with just being different, or I don't know. She
Maybe
used to
she
like
got
Eric.
dropped on her head.
Yeah, she used to like Eric Decker too. He was on the Jets, so it might have had something to do with that.
She dated him?
Oh no, she didn't date him. She used to like him, Eric Decker, the former receiver.
All right. Let's go back and talk about 2 weeks ago. The Raiders lose to Carolina in a devastating loss. Devastating loss. And it was a big one. I told you at the time I loved how AP came out and talked about business decisions. I love that he sent a message to the fans. This is not acceptable. He, unlike other coaches that come out usually with coaches speak, he was angry, like the fans, and the team absolutely responded. Down 7 starters when the game started. Think about that, Matt. Down 7 starters when the game started. 6 injured, and then Jack Jones didn't play in the first quarter. They come out, they get the win over a terrible Cleveland team. Good defense, just not a good team. And it was a monster win. It set a statement. How big of a win? I don't think you can make. I mean, it's not a Super Bowl, and it didn't get them into a playoff. But I think it stopped the bleeding. I think it's a fence post of where the franchise is going. I thought it was a character win. Your thoughts on that win?
Well, they had to have it. And, being 1-2 and having lost to Carolina, now you're coming home. You're playing a Browns team that's been struggling. It's a game you have to get, and I do think it was good to see them respond, especially missing, Max Crosby, Devontae, all these guys that are big time players that were injured. To still be able to go out there and get that W was important. It sets you up. If you're a Raider fan, I think you would have signed up for 2-2 after the first month. Probably looked a little different than you would have thought it might have, but you'll take that overall record now going into this stretch where you play 6 or 7 really tough games in a row. I guess depending on if Miami has Tua back by then. But even if they don't, every other game is going to be a challenge in that stretch. So you needed that win. You needed to see them step up. Obviously, and we'll get to, I'm sure, the Davante Adams stuff later. That's kind of overshadowing the win a little bit. But I do think it was important for the team and important for Antonio Pierce to get that W.
We're not going to get into a lot on the Davante Adams. As I reported earlier in the week, they were, going to consider any substantive offer. And I'm going to have you knew because I've shared with you privately some things that had gone on with Davante, that I didn't share publicly. And I we're going to do a whole deep dive on that.
Right.
To me, I just think you owe it to the Raiders to keep the focus on the Raiders. And you know what? Fine. All right. Bye. Just keep moving. And we'll get into Devontae, and a deep dive situation when that's necessary. But to me, the Raider win, it was a statement about Antonio Pierce. This team, for the overwhelming majority, I mean, 95, 98, 99%, they are just there. They are in cahoots. They are a team. They are, to me, the way Antonio Pierce leads, we saw it as a player, we saw it as an assistant coach, and now as a head coach. To me, it says a lot about him as a man. Now, in the interest of fair disclosure, I consider him a friend, but it just shows a lot about that leadership. You're seeing it with the Dan Campbells, the D'Amico Ryans, just that I've been here, I've done that, let's go. It isn't about the coach trying to make everybody think he's smart. It is all he cares about is winning. That is a fresh approach from coaches. Well, we got to watch the tape and 24-hour. This is a fresh approach. What do you think of it? Now, granted, you're a Raider. I mean, you're a Giant fan, so you're automatically it appears. But I think this says a lot about him, Matt.
It definitely is a unique approach because, like you said, pretty much everybody kind of, there's a lot after games. There's a lot of coach speak. There's not a lot of guys that would stand up there at the podium after that loss in week 3 and say, if guys are making business decisions, we're going to make business decisions and kind of have that kind of toughness about them. But I think that's it. That's the way he's going to do things, and that's the way he's approaching things. And I think that works for him, or has worked for him so far.
Right.
We'll obviously, we'll see how, as the franchise, the team continues to build, if it works the same way or if he makes any changes or anything like that. Because, obviously he played for a guy in New York, Tom Coughlin, who had to alter his approach a little bit in order to win Super Bowls, even though he kept, he maintained that base of who he always was. I think that's what you'll try to see with Antonio Pierce. He's always going to be this guy, and then he'll make some adjustments if needed as time goes on. But so far, I think that it's a good fit, at least from an outside perspective, for what the Raiders are trying to build.
I was doing a national interview yesterday, and someone asked me because I brought up this subject of him, and if I thought other coaches would change. And I told them, you don't want that, because if it's not who you are, it's just being fake. One of the things, and I've told this to AP, one of the things that I respect him for, and you've been a friend of mine for a long time, you know what friendship means to me. But one of the things that I respect him for is one of the same reasons why my family literally loves you. You're genuine. And I love the fact I don't have to agree with people politically to be their friend. I don't have to be the same color. We don't have to share same religious affiliation or lack thereof. I like genuine people. And when you're genuine, I think people spot that, and I think they appreciate it. Right or wrong?
I would agree, definitely, without a question. And I think that you can't fake who you are, especially when you're in a position of leadership, coaching a professional sports team, because the players will sniff it out right away. If you're trying to come off as somebody that's hard and tough and an enforcer type, and it's not you, they're going to laugh at you, and it's not going to work. And if you're, if that's who you are, if you're Antonio Pierce, you're the same way, and then you try to soften it too much or change who you are, people are going to notice that difference too. They're going to notice that something's off. So I think you really always have to kind of maintain, integrity, maintain your leadership style. Make tweaks, of course, but you have to be at your core who you are at all times.
I want to go to Damian Lillard. I mean, the guy comes out, he's mad at Davante Adams. I just, the NBA star, it amazes me how quickly franchises can go off the rails. And I don't believe the Raiders have. But that's why you've got to have a guy steering the commander or the engineer in the train, keeping it right on the tracks, don't you?
Without a doubt. I think it's funny. I mean, Damian Lillard's a Bay Area guy, so he's been a Raider fan, I'm sure, his whole life, and he's sticking with the team. And he's probably frustrated seeing all the stuff about Davante. I don't know if they know each other personally, but I'm sure that, he obviously wants to see him stick around and play for the Raiders because it makes them a better team. But I thought that two things. I think your overriding point is that, you need a guy in there to lead things so things don't go off the rails in situations like this. But number two, I thought it was kind of cool because it's funny how Damian Lillard is this NBA star, world famous, top 75 player in NBA history. He was named a couple of years ago, and he's still a fan. He's still a fan of another team. He's a fan of the Raiders. So I think it's funny how that, that bonds everybody.
All right. Micah Parsons. He does a podcast with a buddy of his who's the superstar Eagle. And people are getting mad at him. This is something I don't get. And help me, Matt, because it doesn't make sense to me. These guys have relationships off the field. All right. Now, I don't know Micah. I'm not a friend of Micah, but I've got to spend time with him twice. One of them being this offseason. And when I say time, it's away from football and pretty significant, probably an hour with him. Talked to them quite a bit. I just genuinely really liked him. He was, I don't even know how to describe it. He was just one of the nicest guys. I'll tell you a quick story about Micah. So I'm visiting with him, and this kid goes walking by in a jersey of another team. And he says, hey, you can't wear that jersey. And then the kid kind of was shocked. Wait a minute, it's Micah Parsons. And Micah's like, I got to buy that jersey from you. I got to give you money to go get my jersey. And it was the cutest exchange I think I've ever seen between a professional athlete and a player. And I mean, he is so genuine. And we're in the midst of us spending, again, we spent time together twice. Both times he didn't offer to buy a kid's jersey the first time, but both times very ethereal. And then we got into subjects that had nothing to do with football. And I think sometimes people forget, these guys compete. And it's genuine and it's real. And it's just like when you play your brothers. I mean, when I play cards with my brothers to this day, whether it's euchre or cribbage or whatever, I still want to crush them. But they're still human. Talk about this. And did you think it was an overreaction? Now, I understand he's a Pennsylvania guy. He played at Penn State. And there's probably a lot of angst in Dallas wondering, if he's going to be back. But talk about him and the reaction, would you?
Sure. I think that there's a couple of levels to this. I think that it is something that modern fans have to recognize and deal with, is that these players in general in all sports it's different than it was a generation ago, 2 generations ago. Guys are going to be more buddy or overtly friendly than they had been because they have relationships off the field. And not that they didn't in the past, but now there's podcasts, now there's social media, now there's all these different mediums for them to stay connected and connect during the season. So you're going to see that. You're going to see more guys, after games being friendlier or going on podcasts, stuff like that. So I think that's just sort of like, fans, all right, maybe some people don't like it, but you got to deal with it. That's reality now. The one thing that I understand where Eagles fans were upset is Darius Slay goes on the show and, in general, they're probably going to be disappointed that he's, on there with a Cowboys guy. But he's talking about one of his teammates on the show. Like they're, they're joking about CJ Gardner-Johnson and how he got beat on Sunday after kind of, talking smack during the week and different things. So I think when there's that type of stuff goes on, it's going to leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths when you're talking about one of your guys on an opposing rivals podcast.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, some of it is I think there was even, I'm trying to look, yeah, it was Trey Thomas. I wanted to make sure I got the name right. Trey Thomas, former, all-time great Eagles lineman, saying, I couldn't imagine Bobby Taylor or Troy Vincent, Lito Shepherd, Sheldon Brown, Al Harris going on DeMarcus Ware's MySpace Live. It shows how old Trey Thomas is, talking about MySpace, to talk about Brian Dawkins' performance.
What is MySpace?
MySpace it might still exist, but it was big when I was in high school. So we're talking, 20 years ago. It was a big social media. It was like the proto social media of all this stuff. So
listen, Halatic, I graduated 35 years ago. Yeah, I've never even heard of MySpace.
Okay. No, yeah. Well, you didn't miss much.
I want to talk to you. I want to end the podcast today on the power of today. And I want to explain what I mean by that. I love the NFL. And I want to go back real quick to something you just said about Micah. My eye-opening event that happened when I realized that it wasn't what we thought is growing up in Michigan, we hated Larry Bird. Irvin is our guy. Okay. Irvin's he's from Lansing, Michigan, played at Michigan State. Irvin may be the most popular person in the state of Michigan, and Dan Campbell, though, is coming second. And I'm not a Lions fan, but that's the reality. I mean, dear Lord, my mother's in her late 80s, and all she wants to talk about is Dylan Labe, the Raiders running back, Antonio Pierce, and Dan Campbell. She's all in. Okay. But I came around a corner and there's Irvin. And I've known Irvin for a long time. And literally, so it was not a big deal for me to see Irvin. And he's facing me, and there's someone whose back's to me. I go, oh, hey, Irvin. And the guy turns, and it's Bird. Mm-hmm. Now, this is like public enemy number one, and a man that's a sports icon that everybody in Michigan admires. And it hit me. Now, this is before, this is a long time before everybody knew how close they were.
Right.
And it just hit me. All right, I want to talk about the power of today. It's game day today. And Raiders big game in Denver. And let's be very frank and very honest. Things are going to happen today that people overreact to in a good way, in a bad way. But each day in the NFL, it's the power of today. It's I don't even know how to describe it. Years ago, I met a guy at the Raiders. It was, I think, the 2021 season. It was my second year covering the Raiders. And he was telling me how big of a Raider fan he was, and said, in fact, the Raiders had gone on a losing streak, not in 2021, but in a particular year. And he just told his fiance, listen, we got to put our wedding off until after the season. I'm just not in a mood. I don't want to get married. I'm in such a bad place. People do not understand, or I want to go back. I do think they understand. I don't think they verbalize it enough. The power of today. The National Football League is, right or wrong, the reality is it impacts families, countries, states. I mean, I can't even tell you. My social media, my Facebook exploded because the Lions won on Monday night, because I'm from Michigan, and I mean, the power of today in the NFL. Would you talk about that, please?
Sure. I think what it comes down to is these games have major impacts. If you get a win, it can, as a fan, it propels you for days. You're on a high on Monday through the start of your work week. And if your team loses, you're ticked off and you're, in a funk, and you're never going to win again, and, fire everybody. And it's funny. It's funny.
I have to tell you, So being from Michigan, 10% of my Facebook friends, I know who they are. Okay. And maybe 5% of them are from Michigan. The other 5% are people like you that I'm close to who are friends but aren't Lions fans. The other 90% are all Raiders because I accept friend requests. I mean, I'm at my limit, but I accept friend requests. My Twitter is almost all Raider and NFL fans. So I get to see it every week with the Lions in a small way because my whole family will still text me and I'm like, guys, I'm not a Lions fan. I'm at a Raiders game. I can't comment. But I see it in such a and Raider Nation, God bless these people, man. They are the best fans in the world. Lions fans can't carry their jock. I'm just being honest. Lions fans will go to the game and, oh, did we lose? Oh, that's funny. How did we lose? I mean, that's how it used to be when I was growing up. Raider fan, why were we in a cover two? Why did we put an extra man in the box? I mean, they know the game, Matt, and it is fun. I shared this story with you. I don't remember now if I was in a restaurant or a grocery store, but this older lady comes up to me in Henderson and she starts wanting to break down what Patrick Graham did for this defense. And did you notice this guy's footwork? And I mean, it's just different with the Raiders. It's fun, the power of today, isn't it?
Without a doubt. That's what makes the NFL go.
I love it. I absolutely love it. They've ruined college sports, college football. I'm just glad we have the NFL. Matt, each and every week. Now, listen, Matt's the editor and publisher of thespun.com. In my opinion, it is the best. I don't even know what I would call aggregating site for football meets pop culture. If you're like me and you've had too much Taylor Swift, you're going to get a lot of it there because it does impact the NFL. But Matt is a super job. He's the editor and publisher. I read it every day. I learn something every day. Look at, I just hang out with this guy for 20 minutes today and I learn about MySpace. And it's a great site. Follow it, thespun.com. Matt, would you tell everybody what your social media handle is? I know a lot of Raider fans have told me they started following you. So what's your social media?
Yeah. You can find me at Matt Hladik 919 on X, Twitter, whatever. At MATTHLADIK 919.
You're the best, Matt. Talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, man.